Welcome to Rex Sikes Movie Beat, conversations with filmmakers where we discuss everything film and television. Here on Movie Beat, you'll learn what to do and what not to do when it comes to making movies and TV, and we will talk to everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and I'll provide you with the guests and the information you're going to want to have, whether you're a filmmaker or a fan. And so now let's move behind the scenes here at Movie Beat. This is conversations with filmmakers. So I want to thank all of my viewers and my listeners who listen on Apple and Spotify and wherever podcasts are for tuning in and for spreading the news about Movie Beat to your friends and your industry connections and to your fans, and for all your emails and phone calls, feedback, and support. So the official website for Rex Sikes Movie Beat now is at rexsikestv.com. And there's two shows here. There's Create Your Best Life with Rex, and there is Rex Sikes Movie Beat. And you'll notice that there is no opening music yet. We're still putting some things together that should have been together when we rebooted the show, and so just so you know, things will be changing in the coming days. I got lots of guests coming up. Next week we've got a new show every week with someone else, either Rex Sikes Movie Beat or Create Your Best Life with Rex. So my guest today is Jeff Ohm, and he's a veteran colorist, FX artist, and creative technologist with over 35 years of experience in film, television, and emerging media. He's contributed to more than 100 major studio films, including Titanic, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Harry Potter, and many, many more. And he's collaborated with leading studios such as Disney, DreamWorks, Marvel, Sony, and Universal. In recent years, Jeff's expanded his creative footprint by producing, directing, by doing visual effects, and grading independent films across California, Wisconsin, Kazakhstan, and he's recognized as an expert in artificial intelligence-driven special effects, visual effects workflows, blending cutting-edge tools with cinematic storytelling to streamline post-production pipelines. And he's a former Autodesk product specialist for Flame, Smoke, Lustre, and Jeff has also lectured worldwide on post-production, AI, and virtual production. So without any further delay, I'm going to bring Jeff up, and you can help me welcome him. Now, if you're watching, hi Jeff, how you doing?
Good to see you, Rex.
Awesome. It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
I'm glad to have you. It's been a while. You've been on before, but that was a few years back.
Yeah. Time flies. After living 35 years in LA, 6 years ago we moved to Wisconsin. So I've actually been continue working with filmmakers here in Wisconsin. I just returned from 2 months in Kazakhstan, where I was working on an international film, and then I just started working on 8-episode television series called Koba, and I'm actually not only colorist, I'm also a producer on that project.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. So, well, tell us a little bit about it. What can you tell us about the series?
The series is it's an action adventure of undercover police officers, and takes place in Kazakhstan. The language is Russian. There's 2 languages that people speak there, and then the other project is Nomad's Journey, which that was the feature film which I worked on for 6 months, and then went over there to finish it. And they introduced me to these television filmmakers. So yeah, it's kind of nice. It's rough to. I think my flight back was 40 hours door to door. So that was a pretty big trip. But it was interesting. My travel through Doha, Qatar, on the way, just before all the big news about Qatar, with the plane and the jet and 747, and it's kind of funny because I'd never heard of Doha, and then all of a sudden, next thing is it's all over the news. But yeah, it's the travel is rough sometime, and I was there a little bit longer than I'd anticipated, but it's good people. They make great films. They have a very deep history in filmmaking, and they're like practical special effects guys are really great. There's got some great action scenes, blowing things up, trucks going over the side of hills, and they're able to do some things that you probably wouldn't pull off in Hollywood. So it's always interesting filmmaking.
That sounds incredible. A lot of people don't know this, but I speak Russian.
Oh wow.
Wow. And net.
Yeah.
Those are the two words I speak in Russian.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't pick up, people say, "Oh, you're there 2 months," and Russian's a very difficult language to but it was kind of funny because not speaking that, and then having meetings, or even people, and it's like every once in a while you'll hear a word like, but most of the time it's just like blah 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 flashback, or blah 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 montage. There's some words that stick out, that they still use the English term for it. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then I've done a couple independent films with Danny Villanova. We did a independent film that just won a horror film award.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And then a couple years ago, I directed a 9/11 stories of 9/11. It's called Through the Storm, and that's been on the festival circuit now for coming up on a year. But we won the San Diego Film Festival. We've won international film festivals and things like that. And that was just a really great experience, talking with the firefighters and first responders, and getting their story. And it's always difficult for them talking about those memories. But It was a wonderful experience, and I'm working with uh, two musicians, the Black Donnellys. We co-directed it, so the project was their idea. Then they asked me if I could help them, and the project, they shot way more footage than I thought they ever would. But I actually trained one of them up on Blackmagic Resolve, and now he's his own editor, and likes doing that type of stuff. So, as well as musicians. So a lot of time what we'll do is we'll screen the film, then the guys will come and play. So it really kind of makes it a great event.
Wow, how cool. A couple of things. One is welcome, Lorna. So great to see you here from the Canary Islands. Thank you for posting in the chat room. And just a reminder that if you're watching live, there's a chat room so you can ask questions of Jeff, of my guest, or of me, I suppose, and you can leave comments. So please do. If you're watching this in replay, obviously there's no chat room. So I always encourage people, if they want to interact with guests and talk film or other things, my other show, for example, to be sure to watch while it's live. Question about Kazakhstan. I mean, you talked about so many things, but going back, did you have translators or interpreters who were speaking, or did they speak English? But
I did. I did actually speak to a group of filmmakers, and had a translator for that. One of the other nice things I was able to do was I spoke to a group of youngsters, that they had like an after school program, And that was really rewarding. I kind of told stories about the days working at DreamWorks, and showed them clips of some of the movies that I worked on there. Um, but the director actually uh, spoke English. Marina, um, she 12 years ago, I went to Kazakhstan for the first time, and I did 3 movies in 30 days there, coloring them. So that was pretty busy. But Marina's movie, we actually I brought back with me to finish up a little bit of the visual effects, and they actually ended up. Marina and her daughter Asenia ended up living in LA for 2 years while Asenia went to school. Um, so yeah, the first time we worked together 12 years ago, Marina didn't speak English, and this time she did. So it definitely made it a lot easier.
Well, I mean, it's hard enough when you speak English to sometimes get a vision or a point across to another person, who to have them understand and then follow instructions. I mean, that's in any language. But if you're speaking, like I had a phone call today, the person spoke English, sort of very broken English, and I had to say, "Could you please send me an email?" I mean, I didn't want to say, "Look, I can't understand the words you're saying."
Sure.
But I had to say, in order to help me remember this, would you put this down in an email for me so that I can have it all in front of me in one place? And they said, sure. So, I mean, how do you? That's why I'm asking. You're working in another language with people who don't speak your language necessarily.
Yeah, especially when you're talking visual effects and color, where you need something very precise when you're going for for flesh tones and things like that. But yeah, it's a great experience working with those guys, and every time I go, like I lived in China for six months, and I didn't pick up any Chinese, just a couple. Sansu. It's is a countdown that I had that one. We were shooting the music video, and I heard the guy doing a sound check, and the guy goes Sansu, and I looked at my translator. I said, "Testing 1 2 3 4," and she goes, "Yes." So I would use that. I was really blessed. I spoke to like 45 universities, recruiting for visual effects and virtual reality academy that I helped start up over there. Um, but it's always interesting to to travel and get the reaction of people. Um, and it is funny. They really in Kazakhstan and China, they treat me like royalty. They're very accommodating and helpful. In a lot of different situations, it's hard to get around. It's a little easier now with apps that you can actually get drivers and get to where you need to go. They actually in Kazakhstan, they're they have a thing called Yandex that is kind of like Google, but you use that app to rent your cars, get food, do all that. That's in English, so that worked out pretty nice.
Well, that's awesome. So, let's for a moment talk about what it means when you say you do color for film, because there are people, the most amazing thing about people who watch movie beats, there's industry professionals who watch it, people who are starting their careers who watch it or listen to it. And then there are fans worldwide who have no industry experience whatsoever. They don't want any. They just love learning about what goes on either during production or behind the scenes and things like that. So the colorization process is what? What are you doing?
Yeah, basically, it's an extension of the editorial process. I was very blessed in my career. I started out as an editor. Then I started doing visual effects, and so it was late in my career that after I had a significant career in visual effects that I moved on to color correction. So the tool that I use is actually a free tool, and it has a paid version, and it's called Resolve. Its original name was DaVinci Resolve, but that's made by a company called Blackmagic Design. So if you go Blackmagic Design, you can download the Resolve software and actually use it as an editing tool. And then once everything is together and edited, then it normally will go to a colorist, or in my case, a combination editor colorist that you go through and you set the mood, and try and make everybody look really great. Um, is the big thing, and in the colors, if it's a warm scene and supposed to be kind of happy, it'll be warm and warm tones and things like that. And then there's another show that I did called The Revenant, where everything was supposed to be miserable and cold. So with that kind of show, you use cool blue tones, for that.
I mean, that when you say The Revenant, I mean, what an amazing picture that was. And yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense because they're out in the miserable wilderness and cold in the water and free, and all that kind of stuff. So you say you use these bluer tones and different things to give the feel of the environment.
Yeah, that was actually shot just outside of Calgary, in the foothills of the Rockies, and you talk about language and stuff like that. That had two Mexican filmmakers, Alejandro, and then Emmanuel Lubinsky, who was the director of photography. But that project turned out really great. But it was interesting that they knew that that film was poised for Leo to win his first Academy Award. After all the stuff that he had done, Titanic and things like that. When one of my friends from Technicolor, Brian Gaffney, we built a mobile theater, and Brian called me up and he goes, hey, they're going to use our truck, and it's going to have the software Lustre is going to be used on it, and he said should be really great because the directors are most likely going to win a Academy Award for Birdman. It was the same team that did Birdman. Wow. Which was an interesting show. Yeah. So Brian pitched it to me. He says this is going to have these guys that are going to win the Oscar team on it, and they're pitching it kind of to be Leo's first Academy Award. So with that alone, I was sold. I'm all in on the project to work with these great filmmakers, and they but yeah, they'd speak Spanish to each other, which I don't speak Spanish at all. And then I just when I heard English coming out, then I knew that they were going to be addressing me, because of course in a mobile theater, they're facing the screen and I'm sitting behind them. So it's an interesting dynamic to communicate with people when their backs are to you in a theater. So just part of the game.
Now Tom Brady was in Hardy. I mean,
oh yeah, Tom Hardy. Yeah, Tom Hardy was in it too.
That performance of Tom Hardy. There's times when he's like with DiCaprio, the look in his face. I would bet he was totally insane.
He was really intense.
Oh, what a performance! I mean, all the stuff that those guys went through to make that movie, and what you guys. So thank you. Let me turn this a little bit toward no, let me go back to visual effects. So so there's the colorization process, and then there's part of the editing process and things like that, but also visual effects.
Yeah. So visual effects will normally start after the cut is finished, so that you work on as few frames as possible. But some directors will have it coincide a little bit, at the same time. I was trying to think of a director. There was one director that actually had us composite all the car scenes, where they're shot on green screen, and we would actually composite the whole take. And then David Fincher was very blessed to work with him on the Zodiac movie,
wow.
which was really great. But so yeah, he would have us comp the whole scenes so that it was already done. By the time he got done with it. So that's an interesting way to work too. That you're doing shots that are like 5 to 10 minutes, or something, a big long take or something like that. But that was one of the things that Chivo Emmanuel Lubinski did on The Revenant, where it was like trying to do like one scene was a whole continuous shot, which is actually how they do it in visual effects. Is they'll do like a whole dolly move or something like that, and then they'll pick up at a new place and then and do it, but they'll edit it together and do visual effects so that it's seamless, so it looks like all one big drone move.
Is that pretty much what they did on Birdman?
Yes, that's exactly what they did on Birdman. They had worked with ILM on that, Industrial Light and Magic, but yeah, it's those are really difficult shots to do, and then grading. It's the same thing too, where it may take place over a couple of days of the shoot, and you have to make everything look absolutely seamless. So
Right.
there's definitely some tricky parts, but I'm very blessed having the knowledge that I started out as an editor, then did visual effects and then color, so that I really I can do all those skills. So if a show needs some visual effects, or some additional editing or something like that, I'm able to jump in and handle that task.
Wow. Do you know where the first movie robot appeared?
No.
It was in a Harry Houdini silent film.
Oh, wow.
And obviously it was a guy in a costume, but it was the very first film robot. Was like before 1926 when Houdini died, and it's an interesting thing.
That's funny. Harry Houdini is actually spent some time in my hometown, Appleton. So they have like a Houdini Plaza, and the other guy that from Appleton is Willem Dafoe.
Yeah,
is a native too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and one of the nice things, there are so many talented filmmakers in Wisconsin, and I know one of the things we were going to talk about is is tax incentives. And
absolutely.
Wisconsin, actually, when I was in California, Wisconsin started their tax incentive plan, and they would have a great event at the Holiday Inn in Studio City, where they would have cheese and brats, and they normally do it on like a Sunday where there was a Packer game or something like that, and and but I think only one movie got the tax incentive, and then it didn't work out for whatever reason. And
There were four.
four, okay,
There were four. It was Project Solitude, which was renamed. A friend of mine, Susan Moses, produced that up in the Door County area up north. There was Feed the Fish, which Michael Matsdorf, I think, directed, and that was up also in Door County. It starred Tony Shalhoub. There was No God, No Master in 2009. Terry Green brought a $5 million production into town about the first act of domestic terrorism in the United States back turn of the 19th century, whatever. And then there was Johnny Depp, the Public Enemy,
right.
and then there was all this brouhaha about what happened, and the film incentives were removed June 30th of 2009. So after a year of having film incentives, and during that same time, and here's the important part, during that same time, there were 25 films in production, including David Lynch's ex-wife. She produced a movie called Baraboo out in the Baraboo area, a SAG movie, but had no incentives, and 24 other projects, including some reality TV and things. So once we had the incentives in Wisconsin for a year, there were like 30 different productions that were made with or without the incentives. And then we lost the incentives, and then business just left Wisconsin again. So it attracted a lot in and got a lot of local things going, and then it dissipated because there was no advantage to being here.
Yeah, I mean, one of the places that's really capitalized on it is Chicago. Illinois with the Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago Cops. That's a real boon for that area. And yeah, I mean, I was really blessed because I worked in the Green Bay TV market while I was going to University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and then as soon as I graduated, the TV station actually asked me to drive the remote truck out to Hollywood, and so I stayed at the Hollywood. We were shooting a show called The Stars Table, and I stayed at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel.
Oh, beautiful!
Where the first Oscars were held. So yeah, I came from Appleton, Wisconsin, straight to staying on Hollywood Boulevard across from Man's Chinese.
The Chinese,
yeah. And I was there for a month, and I worked with the crew doing lighting and things like that. And then the TV station said, "Okay, drive the truck to Roanoke, Virginia." So we drove the truck back across the United States, flew home, and then I went and packed up my station wagon with my then girlfriend, now wife, and Stina and I drove out, and I showed up at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel on a shoot day morning, and I said, you guys said you'd give me a job, so I came back for the job. So I went out to LA with no real job, but I had connections from the people that I'd worked with, and so they were happy, gave me a job as a PA, and then actually when we went out to lunch and we came back and everybody was packing boxes, and they said, "Oh, we're going on hiatus." And I kind of knew deep down that the show was canceled, so I went to the duplication facility. In that day, all the shows like Wheel of Fortune and things were on videotape. It was actually right before the invention of satellite TV. So I got a job at the duplication facility, And then that's where I kind of discovered that I enjoyed post-production. And then I left that job and I went to a place called the Post Group in Hollywood, and started working on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Pee Wee's Playhouse, and doing all these music videos with these directors from a production company called Propaganda Films. Well, those guys were David Fincher, Michael Bay, all young music video directors. But back in those days, they're actually, record labels had budgets for the music videos, and sometimes, these would be, Michael Jackson video with, you'd have $1 million budget
Right.
for a music video. So it was a fantastic time to be in the business, to learn from all these great, future directors, and to be able to work with them as clients.
Wow.
But yeah, music videos were a rough business. Those would, they'd normally shoot it on like a Monday or Tuesday, and then edit for 2-3 days, and then we'd come in and start doing the visual effects all on basically TV broadcast equipment, switchers, things like that. But it was a very exciting time. And
When did you move out there?
1986.
Wow. Yeah, if you went down to Sunset Boulevard and you headed east at Gower, there was the ABC Entertainment Complex.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, that used to be Columbia Studios.
Okay.
And Columbia went south in the 60s and 70s and went out to Burbank at the Burbank Studios, and they left the studio to decay, but you could rent places. So I lived in Soundstage 1 of Columbia Studios for about 1.5 years with some other people
wow.
making horrible low-budget horror films. And Sundance Lighting was there, and Billy Joel, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, David Bowie, and all these people would come in and drive past my front door, which was a garage door for a studio, right? And the guard gate was right there. It was the soundstage where they shot the Three Stooges and then later Bewitched. And but they would come in and say, "Hey, come watch us," and we'd go down and watch them, rehearse. So it was an amazing place to live. But at the time, Hollywood was much grittier than it became. It's more Disneyfied now, but at the time it was pretty gritty. And then later, ABC Entertainment bought it, and they did Welcome Back, Kotter, and General Hospital, and a bunch of different shows there. And then they tore down that soundstage. It's now a parking lot. I mean, everything is different so today, but in the 80s, it was still not that much different than it was in the 70s and things. One thing I need to say is, if you're a fan of the film incentives in Wisconsin and you're watching this show, the last show that we did, Rex Sikes Movie Beat, was last time, will be on Spotify, Apple, and all wherever podcasts can be found. So I appreciate all those who listen to the podcast. And by the way, there's over 600 hours of Rex Sikes Movie Beat interviews, including one earlier one with Jeff. But actionwisconsin.org, which is going across the screen right now, it's action, ACTION, Wisconsin, WI, one word, ACTIONWI.org, is where you can email the legislators who are responsible for passing the film incentives, or you can just go to actionwisconsin.org and find out what they need, or if there's volunteers or things like that. It's great. The last show was Jeffrey Kurz, who worked at Miramax, for 8 years and produced a whole number of movies, and so you're going to want to watch that show. And Suzanne Jerva, who worked with Spielberg at DreamWorks for 10 years. Both of them are in Wisconsin producing movies, around the country and around the world, but also inside Wisconsin. So between Jeff's show today and their show last time, and another show coming up in a couple of weeks with Michael Seibel. Do you know Michael?
No.
Oh, Michael Seibel is from Wisconsin originally. He moved to LA. He's done many, many movies. And you're gonna want to meet him anyway. But he's going to be on the show on the 11th of June, I believe. So just so that people know, and we'll talk about his work and the film incentives as well And then again, actionwisconsin.com. It's ACTIONWI.org. And so I've done my due diligence to make sure that that was there. Somebody said Lorna saying became an equity member in 1980, did extra work at Singer of a Song. Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's very cool. When I joined Screen Actors Guild, it was 1975. And at that time, you could belong to the Screen Actors Guild, you could belong to Equity, you could belong to AFTRA, and you could belong to, it was a variety performance artists or something like that. I forget what it was. I don't think some of them are still around. SAG and AFTRA merged, and things have changed. So,
yeah, my youngest son, Getty, is in SAG now. He there was a movie, Babylon.
Of course.
Yeah, he was. Oh my God, Toby Maguire. He was Toby Maguire's right hand man in the pit, and he actually. It's kind of funny because he had moved during COVID. He came out to the farm, and one of the things out at the farm, we'd hunt squirrels and stuff like that. But the director of Babylon, which I can't remember what his name is, but it actually went over to Getty, who was standing in the holding area, and said, "Do you know how to handle a weapon?" And so he had a big scene with a pistol, and sadly, a bunch of it got cut because of what happened on Rust. That movies were kind of downplaying the gun violence, after that. But yeah, he's out in LA, doing work, and he actually works at the brand new Silmar Studios, which are six 20,000-foot sound stages.
Wow.
One of the first sound stages that's been built purposely, in the last couple of years. So
wow,
yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Makes me want to go back now and watch Babylon again. The it's interesting when you talk about that, how things have changed. In 1976, it's coming up on 50 years. Somebody just called me today about doing one of these meet and greets. Is the 50th anniversary of Massacre at Central High. I co-starred in that as Rodney, and this kind of thing. And it was about the death of, there were 13 cast members and a bunch of extras, but the 13 cast members, I think all but 4 die in the movie.
Oh my.
It's by somebody killing them. And it's actually the film that gave rise to Heathers. Heathers is almost a blatant ripoff of Massacre at Central High. And down to dialogue. I mean, it's really an amazing thing. So I did this movie, and then it fell out of favor because it wasn't cool to have this sort of thing happen. I did another thing that was Killer's Matinee, and it opened for movies like around the country in between. It was a short. And so before the movie or during the intermission, they would play the short. And I walk into a movie theater trying to watch Casablanca, and people are making noise. So I shoot all the people making noise with a 357 Magnum, and turn around and blow people away. And of course, at the time, it got standing ovations. It got booed. It created ruckus in the theater. I mean, it created this whole thing. You couldn't do that today. We had this whole thing about doing Killer goes to Jack in the Box, Killer goes to the car wash, Killer goes to the laundromat. As a result, and then sadly, not that many months or a year later, somebody did that in the McDonald's in San Diego or whatever, and so that disappeared. And but in the 90s, I think it was HBO got interested in it and then said, "No, we can't go there." So I mean, there's the thing about movies being sensitive and the thing about movies being not sensitive, and today, I mean, it's a very different world from what was going on. I mean, both those movies, 76 to 79. So, back then it was the rise of the independent, gritty, anti-hero kind of stuff. And today it's a different market.
Yeah, I mean the international market is very interesting because China has pretty heavy duty restrictions on gun violence or even blood. So you kind of need to do a specific China version, for that, which adds to the complexity of the post production process. That you have a couple different cuts of the movie depending on what market it's going to.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and I don't want to be political about Rust, but as a young actor in the 70s, we were taught. I mean, until I shot that 357 in that movie, I didn't have a, any experience with shooting a gun like that. And of course, it was blanks. And the guy that did the Godfather was our guy. But the thing that we learned very early on is camera doesn't have any depth of focus. So if I point a gun at someone, I don't have to point it at them. I can point it away from them, and camera can't tell. And so the tragedies like what happened on the Crow with Brandon, or I don't know if it was a Crow movie, but Brandon Lee, who was shot by another actor. It was like we would never point, and sadly the people that were injured and killed in Rust. If you're told shoot at us, it's crazy because you never have to. It's both sad and tragic that those things have occurred, but hopefully people will learn from them and understand. This is movie making. You don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, as I worked on Black Hawk Down, and
Right.
On that, there was just that's where I really kind of cut my teeth on adding muzzle flashes, and smoke to things. There isn't necessarily a reason that you have to shoot or do things like that. So yeah, it's safety first. You always have to be safe on set, no matter what you're doing. If you're doing car scenes or whatever, it's always safety first.
Well, and to that point, the gentleman who called me today said, "Well, you had your nose broken on this film," and I did. I had my nose crushed in 5 minutes before we were before we shot the scene. Somebody backed up and cocoa butted me in the face, broke my nose. They put me in a chair. They go, "Are you good?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we shot the scene.
Wow.
And I spent the rest of the movie with a busted nose, shooting, for weeks, and then I had it fixed a couple years later. But I should have used workman's comp, but I didn't. But I want to ask you about what you and I are doing.
Go ahead. I'm really excited.
Together, Jeff. What are we going to do together?
I don't want to give it all away. So you can go ahead. I'm really excited to work with you.
Likewise. Well, so we're producing a documentary, and there's a narrative piece to it, but then there's also the documentary, and it's tentatively titled "The Peace Project," and I'm excited by it. It was brought to me by a gentleman who said, "I have this idea for something, and would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, run it by me." And I went, "I like that." And so one thing led to the other. You're the first person I called, the first person I thought of when he brought me this project, because I was like, the visual effects, the post production, you produce, you direct, you do all these things. I went, this is a project for Jeff, and so you were the first guy I called.
Yeah, no, I'm honored by that, and really looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun, and I appreciate you thinking of me.
Well, you're an expert at what you do, and I'm happy that you're working with me.
Yeah. No, it's very exciting, and yeah, I look forward to get back and shooting. Again, it's been mostly post production, on things. Well, simply because for me it's easier because I did have an office in Spring Green, Wisconsin, nearby. Um, but a couple months ago, I actually moved my color suite down into the basement of our farmhouse.
Wow.
You know, and through the wonders of Starlink, and I'm able to remote into data centers and have access to larger equipment. And but yeah, I got nice LG monitors, and it's a real blessing to be able to work on projects. On the Kazakhstan project, I actually worked from home doing visual effects for 3 to 4 months before I went over to Kazakhstan to finish it. Um, but the when the director asked me, would you come back to Kazakhstan again, and it had been 12 years, and I knew I could do the work from here, but Marina really wanted me to come out there, and I had a blast. Got a great internal team, and then I worked with a Hollywood studio. Um, um, Scully Effects, and then worked with a South Korean uh, studio too on this project. So there's a lot of visual effects in it, and that's how I came onto it. And there was another show that I did in Shreveport that actually visual effects supervised, that had a cloud tank called the New Mana. So that'll be coming out in a little while. But I think that was the last time I was on set, which was kind of August of last year. And there's nothing better than Louisiana in August.
You know,
At least we were shooting nights though, so that was good.
I was in New Orleans in I don't know, maybe like 1998 or 99 or something like that. It was like May, I think the beginning of May. And it was so humid, my wedding band, my fingers swelled up so much I had to have my wedding band cut off.
Oof.
I mean, it was, and I've never had anything like that before or since or anything. But it was amazing. It was like one day, all of a sudden, it was bloating. So if you were there a while, I don't
Yeah,
envy you.
it was just it was a 3 night shoot in a water tank, and luckily it was nights, and only 3 days. So I was only there for like maybe 5 days, something like that. But Louisiana is one of those places that utilizes the tax incentives. I've been to Albuquerque, New Mexico, on another show that New Mexico has tax incentives, and I've been to Connecticut twice. Actually, I did a show called "The Bronx is Burning" for ESPN about the '78 Yankees, and then I did The Good Nurse, which was a Netflix show uh, out there. So every once in a while, I'll get a call to go to one of these places that needs color correction. Um, normally it's for turnaround and things like that, uh, but I've done dailies also for shows, remote from here. And not having it, it's the travel for color correction is the need is less and less, because the ability to work remote, and really, I mean, one of the advantages of one of the good things that came out of the whole COVID thing was the ability to work from home, because the studios were very tight with the security and things like that. Um, so, but now it became commonplace to work remote, and uh, the industry really had a big boom um, uh, from COVID, because everybody was stuck at home, and but the studio hasn't, the industry really hasn't recovered from the strikes, all that
Right.
much. There's still a downturn in overall production, and a lot of the production is going overseas,
Yeah.
to Croatia, and every Malta even has tax incentives.
Well, and the thing is, the last project that I did in Hollywood was the end of 2019, somewhere between that and the beginning of 2020, and then we had COVID. But I was in the Midwest at that time, and so I kind of got stuck in the Midwest during that, and you can't. They don't really hire actors to appear on Zoom much, but so
Yeah,
it was a tough time, and then now it's better, but it's an amazing, interesting journey. It's like a gig economy unless you're in the series or something. And you got regular work. It's hard to know where your next job will come from.
yeah.
With that said, I just do want to remind people that you're listening and watching Rex Sikes Movie Beat. If you want to email me, you can email me at Rex Sikes Movie Beat, all one word, at gmail.com. Rex Sikes Movie Beat at gmail.com. And if you know of something coming up that, or of a guest or somebody that I should have on the show, or some news item that is relevant to filmmakers and content makers, please do email me at rexsikesmoviebeat.com. Jeff, that's what I wanted to ask you. Do you have a website or an email or something that you want to share with people?
I do. I have jeffolm.com, JEFFOLM.com. And there's a little contact thing on there. Or otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm ironically I'm the only Jeff Olm. Like if you Google me, it's normally me that shows up, so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
I'm trying to there. I'm showing it on the screen there. JeffOlm.com should be on the bottom so that people can see it. And I don't know why it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
No, I saw it.
There we go. Here. There, JeffOlm.com.
There we go.
JeffOlm.com.
Yeah, if you look around, my demo reel is on there, and there's my bio. Like I said, I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin, and graduated from University of Wisconsin Oshkosh Radio, TV, and Film program, and then was just blessed to get out to Hollywood right off the bat.
Did you know, or do you know Pete Schwaba?
I don't think so.
Pete directed a movie. I can't think of the name of it now. It had Tony Goldwyn in it. And Pete was in it. It's about comedians. He does a podcast, and I'm sorry, the name escapes me right now, but it's Pete Schwaba. He's, I think, up in that area, Appleton, or further north. When they were here in the original incentives, and Susan Moses produced Project Solitude up there. There was another film that they were trying to make, which we all worked on very hard, called Nephilim, which was going to be a big kind of supernatural visual effects kind of film, and they were counting on the incentives to come in, and they did, and then they left, and they were gone. So it never happened, and I don't know what became of that project. Susan moved out of Hollywood eventually, and I haven't talked to her in a while. But it's amazing how many people are connected here in the state, and the amount of things that could be done. When Terry Green brought his movie in, No God, No Master, he shot in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His production company was in Chicago, and he came to Wisconsin expressly for the film incentives of Wisconsin. And in 2010, after they took them away, they said, well, look, we don't need to have incentives because Terry Green brought his movie here because he could make Milwaukee look more like early New York than he could, anywhere else. And he said, that's such a blatant lie. I could have made Chicago look more like New York than Milwaukee. I had to do everything to make Milwaukee look like early New York. But I came because I wanted the film incentive. So again, I want to remind people to go to actionwisconsin.org. And there's great people. There's Ann Katz and George Sugros, who are parts of the arts community in Madison area, and who have been advocates for this, and so many wonderful people who are really, really taking an active interest in Wisconsin. Wisconsin used to be known as a flyover state.
Yep.
Or the butt of jokes. It was always like, oh, you must be from Wisconsin, or When I came to Wisconsin, and I would go back to LA, people say, where are you now? And I say, Wisconsin. They go, yeah, Michigan. I said, no, Wisconsin. They go, Minnesota. I mean, no one ever remembered Wisconsin. But when you were out there, since then, there's what's called the Hollywood Badgers. There's a whole contingent of people who are from Wisconsin, who are making movies and working in the film industry out there. And one of the cool parts about it is they are hired as like you are, because they know that they have a good work ethic coming from this Midwest town or Midwest state.
Yeah, no, that's important. And when I was doing hiring I was in middle management at the Post Group at the Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, and when I'd see a resume that came through and said Wisconsin, I'd bring them in for an interview just to see who they were. But yeah, I think getting the film office back will be a huge thing for local and filmmakers from LA, just to help streamline the process a little bit. So hopefully getting the film commission back in order will be a great thing.
And I want to helm that film office.
There you go.
I'm willing to share the responsibility with other people, but I want to be a part of that. I think it's really important to have people who have other connections elsewhere around the world to be there, and to not just make that important part of it, because it's kind of like who you know and who you relate to and how you connect with people, and I think that's all very important. That,
I think there's some really great locations here, like House on the Rock, and of course Door County, and things like that. So there's a lot Wisconsin has to offer.
Well, it's interesting because in the early when I started coming here, I would run into producers every now and then who were visiting, and I go, "Would you ever shoot in Wisconsin?" They go, "I'd love to shoot in Wisconsin. I can't afford to because there were no incentives." And I go, "Wait a second, I'm from Hollywood. It's more costly to shoot in Hollywood than it would be here." And they go, "No, it's not." They said, "I can actually shoot there cheaper than I can here." And it always blew me away. But now, I mean, having been here and everything, I understand it. So the incentives are very important for not just the film business in Wisconsin, but the economy of Wisconsin, because as you're aware, it's a global trillions of dollar global export of entertainment, and to not have any part of that. There's only a handful of states now that don't have incentives. When the first incentives came by, there were 35 states that had them. Wisconsin was one of them. And now there's almost, like 40 or 50 states that have them. We're close, not 50 yet, but, Wisconsin is one of the few that doesn't. So it is important that we pass this legislation and start getting a lion's share. I do also want to remind people that if you're listening to this on Spotify and you want to watch the podcast, you can go to rexsikestv.com. It's rexsikestv.com, all one word, and see the show and see Jeff and see what we're talking about as well. Jeff, I want to thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to continuing to work together on this project, because I think that's exciting. I look forward to your escapades and adventures elsewhere as well. And I want to thank you for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and your experience with us and the viewers and the listeners.
My pleasure, Rex. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm going to close out the show. Stick around. I'll see you in just a few minutes, but thank you for being here, sir. JeffOhm.com. And with that, just another great show. I need to share this with you as well. because I would be remiss if I didn't. I just have to be able to find it. And it's a lot easier said than done. And that is my book from Amazon.com is Rex Sikes. Life on Your Terms, Create the Life That You Want. It's not a movie making book. It's how you navigate your life to be successful and your career. So I want to remind you that if you go to rexsikes.com/book, and again, rexsikes.com, one word, /book, and you take your receipt code from Amazon and apply it as it's instructed at that website, I will give you a $497 bonus online video training on mastery, how you master skills, talents, abilities, your thoughts, your feelings, your words, and your behaviors to create greater and greater success. And so with that, I simply want to say thank you for being here. And I hope that you tune back again and visit us here at Rex Sikes Movie Beat Conversations with Filmmakers at Rex Sikes TV. So I want to thank again my fascinating guest, Jeff Ohm, and you, the watchers and viewers or listeners of Movie Beat. And many more exciting guests coming up. I told you I've got Create Your Best Life with Rex next week. And then after that, we're back to Rex Sikes Movie Beat with Michael Saibo and many others. So please stay tuned and please keep sharing this show, this website, these interviews with all your friends and your contacts. And everybody have a fabulous day. Make your movies, complete your projects. And until we meet again, that is a wrap.